Hello and welcome to the University of Law. In today's video I've got another package to unbox and review the contents. Let's have a look. Can you see? Yes, you can make that out. Doctor Who Alixion, which is the latest Lost Stories released from Big Finish Productions. So obviously for anyone who knows this channel, I unbox the stuff so you can see what the product is like, the packaging is like. But at the same time I also give you a review about my thoughts on the on what we're buying this for, which is the actual drama inside. So let's get this open. So this has been well packaged. It is a 2-disc, so it's not a box set. It's one of the traditional ones, so it's nicely packaged in this cardboard sleeve, which I'm just going to pop to kind of take the glare off. Okay, can you see that? Let's try and bring it a little bit closer. So here we have it, Doctor Who Alixion. Can I make that sharper? Yes, I can. So yeah, Doctor Who Alixion. This is a 7th Doctor and Ace story, as you can see. It's great because we've not had... I'm trying to think when the last 7th Doctor and Ace story was. Obviously, we've had Ace on television in recent years with the 13th Doctor. I'm not sure if she's had a proper release with the 7th Doctor since then, a proper story set during her time. It has been an awful long time because it's mainly been the Harry and Naomi stuff. She was in the last day of the last event. Yeah, the last 7th Doctor's last day, but that wasn't set during their usual time. The last time we've seen Ace, really, I'm sure must have been, and please tell me if I'm wrong, it must have been when she was doing the stuff with Mel. But certainly we haven't seen her and the Doctor on their own for quite some time. So this is set back in the day. This is, well, my assumption is that this isn't set during the Big Finish stuff that happens later. This is kind of before Hex comes on board. You know, this is in that ground when we would have had season 27. So I'm guessing before Dimensions in Time. It's kind of set around that time. Whether it's before the previous Lost Story set during this time or afterwards, so whether it's before they meet, and I can't remember if I've forgotten her name, because they had a new companion for 4 stories, well, for 3 of the 4 stories, and yeah, it will come to me, but whether it's set before or after that, I'm not sure. Yeah, so is this pre-Thin Ice, or is it post Earth Aid? I'm not sure. Thematically, it kind of feels like it's pre. It feels like it's earlier, thematically. But I'll go into that in my review. Let's get the wrapper off. Because then I can kind of go through the discs. And I can tell you my thoughts on the story. So, just a quick history lesson for anyone who's kind of new to Big Finish. Or has kind of come into it in the last few years, but maybe doesn't know the history of Big Finish. We've got Jason Haig-Ellery, who kind of oversees everything, along with Nick Briggs, who's kind of the sort of creative director, correct me if I'm wrong, of Big Finish. And he kind of took over once Doctor Who was back on television. And what I found is since Nick Briggs has taken over, it's classic Doctors, it's classic companions, but it's brand new adventures set in with those Doctors. And you listen to the dramas, and it's like you're listening to a film, but without the visuals. They're really well, and it's always been well produced, but they're really well produced as kind of these contemporary dramas, and they feel very modern. And certainly since Stephen Moffat was in charge of Doctor on the television, they've really felt the Big Finish stuff like it really is in line with what we're seeing on TV, which is really exciting, and it means you can take the characters into new directions and do new things, and have emotional stories with them. And it also means you can have different kind of episode lengths. So like you can have these hour-long episodes. I think it definitely started with the Eighth Doctor kind of having more of a new series style range, which was launched, and then since then the other Doctors seem to have followed suit. Before Nick Briggs, there was a different approach. I love both approaches, and I think this is the thing with Doctor is that with Doctor Who, there's so many different flavours of it. In recent years, Big Finish feels like it's doing big films around these characters and doing things which you couldn't do before. What I loved about the stuff before is there was still groundbreaking stuff, there were still really creative stories, but it did feel a lot more like the era. So it felt like you were stepping back into the eras. Everything was very much of the right length. So you might even have a 3-part Seventh Doctor story sometimes. We did that a few times, and there was 4. And actually, we'll go into that with this actually in a second. But obviously, it was mainly 4-parters. But it had that 20th century Doctor Who structure, and so what I love the fact that we have both, because obviously it's great to take the characters and kind of do like 21st century style Doctor Who stories with them. But at the same time, it's like a nice comforting bath to just enjoy the kind of 20th century pace and style and structure. So they're both great. This was first in a long time where it felt like it was 20th century Doctor Who, and it's right that it did, for the simple reason that it is a lost story. It's a piece of 20th century Doctor Who. I haven't necessarily felt that with some of the 4th Doctor lost stories and the more recent 5th Doctor Cyberman one. I think that's because they were often working from storylines rather than scripts. This was from a storyline rather than a script as well. It was more of a storyline that the original writer remembered rather than had found. From what I gather, he couldn't find the original storyline, but he remembered it. But it very much felt like it would have fitted back then, and I really enjoyed that. I think it was, and as I said, I love at the moment that we've got a 6th Doctor box set that we had last month where he meets Turlough, and it felt very 21st century, and you could, the space of everything was in your head, everything was CGI, but it was nice also to come back to this story where everything felt a little bit more 20th century. As I say, just nice to have that mixture. I mentioned about 3-parters because apparently it was meant to be a 3-parter if it'd been on TV, because if you remember back in the McCoy era, they used to do 2 4-parters and 2 3-parters a year, rather than having 2 4s and a 6. And then one of the 3s would be studio bound, the other 3 would be location. This was going to be a 3-parter, but he was given the option, the writer, to do this as a 3-parter with a bonus episode or something. But in the end, and I've tried to keep it spoiler free, but the episode kicks open with them ending a previous adventure, which kind of launches them into the next one. So there was a temptation that could have done an extra episode about what happened in that previous adventure. But instead, actually, that previous adventure becomes a part of this story and the consequences of it. And therefore, that kind of, we brought all that back in, and it really enriched and embellished the story by having that 4 parts to breathe in. I love 21st century Doctor Who. That's when I got into Doctor Who, but I was at the Terror of the Zygons talk at the weekend, and it's interesting. Felix Hinkley was talking about how when you have longer stories, you do have more time to get to know the new characters in the setting, whereas in the new series, it's more about the development of your core characters. In a sense, in the 20th century Doctor Who, it was more the opposite. You kind of got to develop more the guest characters and the guest cast and the guest setting. So it's interesting, to kind of to get that here with Big Finish. Whereas the benefit of 21st century Doctor is, whereas you might not get to know the guest characters as much, you get a deeper awareness of the core characters. So as I said, there's great things about both, and that's why I love both. And it's all Doctor Who, isn't it? But yeah, so this definitely felt like a continuation of what was on TV at the time. A lot of the backstory we get about Ace and what we learn about the character is very... there's a few red herrings, but when we get to the meat of it, it's very in line with the character and her development, and it feels right at home in the original era. And it's very similar to a recent 13th Doctor story, The Return of the Doctor, which you can find my review on the channel, in terms of the Doctor having consequences for his actions. And I felt this did it really, really well. And again, there were a lot of similar themes between this and actually the 13th Doctor story, in the sense that it was about kind of regret and how we remember things, and the kind of the baggage that we carry, and how that might benefit something that might feed off that. So it was a really enjoyable story. And as I said, it just had the tone and explored the themes. It felt like it was pioneering in that Andrew Cartmel way. And that's why, like I say, it's a 20th century structure, whereas modern Big Finish have a 21st century structure. It doesn't mean you're not doing anything less exciting. It doesn't mean you're doing anything less ambitious. It's just a different way of structuring and pacing, and it's nice to have a mixture of both, but they're still all groundbreaking, fun stories. So that's my review, that's my thoughts on it. I must carry on doing my reviews, actually, of the other Lost stories from this season. Oh, here we go. So we've got the reversible artwork, and we've got the contemporary logo, Doctor Who Alixion, with the contemporary font. I love it how we Doctor Who fans get really excited about fonts and logos. There's some clean artwork in here, cast list, production, credits, and then just to finish off, if I can get the booklet back in, just to finish off, I will show you the discs. So we have got parts, spin it around, parts 1 and 2, there you have it, on disc 1. I'm guessing we're going this way. Yeah, we are. And parts 3 and 4, if I can spin it around, there we go, on disc 2. And there we have it. And then just to finish off, some adverts from some recent Lost stories. You will find reviews for these 3 on the channel. I haven't actually reviewed Genesis of the Cybermen. I did enjoy it. I preferred Spare Parts, but I did enjoy that. It was something very different, and I do kind of wish they'd done it, because it was different. It was interesting, but I do like Spare Parts. Felt a little bit more chilling. But Deathwell was excellent, faultless. Operation Werewolf, a faultless recreation of Series 6 or Season 6, and the arc was a fun one. I probably would say I preferred what we got in the end with the arc in space, but it is fun, especially when I believe it's John Le Carrotti, is it, who wrote that, and I do love his 60s historical Doctor Who, so it was nice to get another piece of Doctor Who from John Le Carrotti. So did you pick this up? What are your thoughts? Do let me know in the comments below. And what Lost stories would you like to see them do next? I'm dying for them to do some new series Lost stuff. Like there was a Mark Gatiss 10th Doctor story set in a museum during World War II, and I'd love them to do that. I'm sure there's quite a few. I know people have mentioned to me in the past about Jodie Whittaker doing what was originally planned for Series 13 before the pandemic happened. I think there's all sorts of possibilities, and I hope at some point we get to see them. Were there plans for Series 2 with Chris Eccleston? Could there potentially be an Unbound series where he doesn't regenerate in party other ways? Possibilities are endless. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe. I look forward to speaking to you soon.